everybody. This is Lori, and I am the founder and CEO of Inclusivity, and this is our podcast, Inclusivi-TALKS. And today we are really fortunate to have actually three guests, Pippi and Daniel, who are amazing musicians and human beings, and we're excited to hear more about them. And our friend Mary Harris is here to help us with the interview. So thank you all for being here.
You're welcome. We're honored to be here in your presence.
We are loving it.
Well, we love having you, so thank you. So usually I just start out saying, and since there are two of you, I think you're going to have to take turns answering this, but sort of tell us how you you're musicians, and you have been, it sounds like, for a long time. So how did that get started? How did you first kind of come to realize you were musical and that was going to be the path your life took?
Well, for me, it was all predicated on getting out of washing the dishes. At my household, because if I sang and wrote a song, then I didn't have to wash dishes.
Wow.
So that was pretty good. And I'm the oldest of 12, but during that time it was just about 3. And then for me also, seeing Lena Horne and Diana Ross was such, and Leslie Uggams. Oh my gosh. I saw women like me, and I knew I wanted to sing.
So was it your suggestion that you get out of doing the dishes if you sang and wrote a song, or was that your parents' suggestion?
It was really my parents' suggestion. After a couple of times when I went back in the kitchen to wash the dishes, I came up with the song. And I would sing it for them without, with no shame or anything, just totally perform that song. And they would like, okay, they made it a deal. So if you do that, we'll do the dishes. So that was pretty cool. And I was coming up with songs all the time, girl. I mean, I was not washing those dishes if I could help it.
Were they songs about pots and pans?
No, it was really cool songs. Like I made up a song that my brother would scream out. I don't know why, but all the time he would go in the bathroom and there was no toilet tissue, and he would say, "Pippi, bring me the toilet paper." Boom, boom, boom. And I'd expand on that.
That's a great song.
They just don't write songs like that anymore.
No, really, they don't. Pippi, if you recorded that,
probably have a hit record. You've been writing ever since, too, haven't you? You've been writing ever since.
I've been writing ever since, Yeah.
So how old were you when you first remember writing a song about toilet paper?
I remember doing it about 8 years old, about 8. But I started singing professionally at 13 years old. And that was because, in the neighborhood, you'd always have groups and we'd always be hanging outside. So in the morning, we'd be in the yard and we'd be working out with the groups, our groups, because we'd have a talent show out front of the house. And so everybody would, be doing their thing, and everybody would get roasted, and people would talk. During that time, we didn't call it roasted, it was doing the dozens. And people would talk about people. It was just so much fun. But everybody would go out front, go in the backyard, play, and they would have their morning clothes on and stuff. And then you go in, have dinner, and get dressed to go out front of the house, and then you'd be putting on a show. And so I had a group of 3 guys, something like Gladys Knight and the Pips at the time, and we were able to. My mom was a real big supporter, and she got us booked. That would
be the Pops.
Right.
The male version would be the
Pops, the Pips. And we performed, for a lot of great people. We opened up at the Capitol Theater for the Jackson 5. And yeah.
Wow.
Nobody knew us, but we did that. And then we were at the Club de Lisa, which turned into the High Chaparral. We opened up for Johnny Taylor and Alvin Cash. So it was fun. It was fun stuff. We didn't know what we were doing. People still said I couldn't sing, but it was best fun. So yeah, that's how I got started. It was really inspirational.
Mm-hmm.
Inspirational to not have to wash dishes, inspirational to see Black, beautiful women on television singing and that look like me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
So was your whole family musical? It sounds like that was a big part of your life.
Church.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we came up Pentecostal church. Grandfather's the pastor and founder of Full Gospel Pentecostal Church. All of us were church folks, 10 in the family. And we all lived in, we didn't live in houses. We lived in a 6-flat building that was owned by our family, and our family owned several 6 flats. And we were a pillar of the community, our family. And everyone was involved in the church. I mean, grandmother was the mother of the church. Grandfather was a pastor. My uncles were deacons, and aunts were saints, and my cousins were the ones that were, running the choir and singing in the choir, and everybody could sing so good, except for me. And but grandfather gave me an opportunity to sing "I'm a Soldier in the Army of the Lord."
Watch out now.
And I did that. I did that when I was.
You want to give us a little bit of
it? Please.
10 years old. Well, this is the great part about this story is that I'm singing this song. I'm a soldier in the army of, because the background is the choir singing, in the army of the Lord. And I say, and I believe in the fight in the army. So anyway, I'm singing this song, but my grandfather and my uncles are behind me are singing, "Sing louder, girl, sing louder," because I wasn't singing loud enough. And I sang so loud, and I really get down, and that was the first time I got a compliment. The compliment was, "Well, you're not an Aretha Franklin, but you could sing. You got some lungs on you, girl." And so that was good. So that was my first experience of projecting my voice. Yeah, it was really cool.
Wow.
Now, how about you, Daniel? What's your musical story, your musical beginning?
Pretty much the same. Seriously, I started playing in nightclubs when I was 13. Mm-hmm. My sister, I was the youngest of 10. Pippi's the oldest of 12. Mm-hmm. I was the youngest of 10. All my siblings were musical with voice. And when I grew up, they all sang. Whenever there was a household event, holiday, and everybody gathered together, they all sang. Because, I mean, this was in the 50s, right?
Right.
I was born in 53. And that makes me about 39.
Right around there.
Just around. So, but I grew up with all of these harmonies, and there wasn't really much that I could do that my other 9 siblings hadn't done, to make me special. And one day I was brought up. I went through the Pentecostal church as well after my Catholicism, which Irish Catholic. So we grew up with that, and the church services were in these pomp and circumstance, big pipe organ, Latin. Everything was said in Latin, and nobody knew what the hell was going on, but we memorized it. Yeah. And I came home, and we had a grand piano in the foyer. We had this. I grew up on the south side of town, south of the South Tracks, and we lived in we thought was a mansion, but it was like a farmhouse. Kind of, it wasn't a farm, but it was kind of a dormered house. And you'd walk in, there was a big foyer, and there was a tall grand piano, not a grand piano, a player piano, that the mechanisms of the player piano probably was given to my father, and he could make anything out of nothing. So he took the stuff that didn't work out of her. So we had, and he was used to tune it with a crescent wrench, that's how he until somebody gave him a tuning for a wrench. So I came home from the church at 4 years old and played the melody, and my mother and father fussed over me. And I believe that was the origin of me getting, oh, really? You like that? Well, watch this, and started playing Jerry Lee Lewis at 5. No, I didn't. And so that, and then my sister was a singer, nightclub singer, and she asked me to play at 13. So it was a drummer, my sister, a guitar player, and me on Hammond organ. And so I started playing professionally at 13, 16 years old. I was playing 6 nights a week. Got kicked out of school because I was late all the time my sophomore year in high school. And then I went back and finished. And yet that's how I started. And then I ran into there was a guy who had been out on the road with this horn band. And back in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, were all these phenomenal Blood, Sweat, and Tears.
Yeah.
Actually, and Tower of Power. And so he had played with this group that had just come back from Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. And I was this wannabe musician, wanted to go out on the road. I thought if I'd go out on the road, then I'd make it, right? I would be it. I'd be, famous. And he had, actually, his father was a motel owner, and he had a motel here in Galesburg, and he connected me with this group. And my first job was in Beaumont, at the Beaumont Motor Inn in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Wow.
Packed up my Hammond C3 with 2 Leslies and went up there, and as they say, the rest is history.
Wow.
Yeah.
So both of you were playing in nightclubs when you were early teens.
Oh, yeah.
That's so interesting. What was that like?
It was wild. It was so much fun. My mother was there. So my mother would swoop me in and swoop me out because obviously because I was a girl. So, but it was so much excitement and exhilaration to be backstage and to watch all the goings on and all the energy that was happening and people looking at you like, what are you doing here? I would never forget Johnny Taylor looking at me. He was a big recording star. And he was playing at the Club de Lisa. The club, the High Chaparral, then I believe that's what it was called at the time. And he looked at me like when I came, when I was going up on the stage, I passed him and he looked at me like, what, who are you? Open it up for me. And the look, I could hear him saying this to me, even though he didn't say it to me. He just looked at me like that. And then after I finished singing with my friends and stuff, and we were just like laughing and everything, and he was getting ready to come up the stairs, he looked at me and he winked like, I did all right. He was like, I was okay. I was good, So then I was like, oh, that's so exciting, I got that feeling because I got the other feeling going up like, ooh, I'm not good. I'm not that good. I'm not Johnny Taylor good, so, and then, but it was wonderful. But being able to be and connect with people that I never was a person that really understood where I was at the time. I never studied people. Mm-hmm. I never really knew the musicians or knew about how famous a club was or anything. I didn't know anything. Everything was happening and I was just in it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like totally present in it and had no idea. And so if somebody would say that's so and so over there, I wouldn't know who they were. So and I wouldn't go any further with trying to figure it out. I was just I was so in the moment of, oh my God, this is so exciting, you know. So so when I think about it, I have more understanding and more depth of what was going on during that time as I look back.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I'm like, oh my God, I was surrounded by all these amazing people and I didn't even know it. When I was in the studio with Pop Staples and the Staple Singers, and I was just hanging out with them, and I was just sitting there because Pops and not Mavis, one of the other sisters, loved me, and invited me down to the studio, and I went down to the studio, and I was just like chilling out, never even had a second thought about, oh, I was hanging out there. I didn't even, it was just like they were just cool musicians and I was just there.
Yeah.
You know, so that was my experience, you know.
I had the MO of with my musician friends that I was constantly, they would use a different word, but teeing people off because I didn't know who they were. And I'm talking about famous people.
Yeah.
I would go up to them and say, so, yeah, just hanging out. You like jazz? Yeah. I like the way you look. Nice hat. Yeah, thank you. So are you a musician then? Yeah. What's your name? One of them was Curtis Fuller. Oh yeah, what do you play? Curtis Fuller's famous trombonist that played with Miles Davis. I mean, and he gave me so much crap that weekend because it was a jazz festival.
Mm-hmm.
He gave me so much crap about not knowing who he was, right? And I said, yeah, you're right. I am sorry. And I couldn't apologize any more to him than I did, and it still didn't matter. He had an attitude.
Yeah.
So you both just loved the music and loved performing.
Yeah.
And that's where you were.
Yeah.
That's it.
So have both of you just continued this path?
Right.
Either of you kind of veer off and do something else for a while, or has music really been?
Oh yeah, we both did other things.
Yeah.
I have 3 daughters, and
Okay.
I have 2.
and I mean biological, and
Yeah,
that would mean we both have
With
5.
5 together. Yeah.
And I was married twice, and so I was raised. I was a single parent.
3
through
times
divorce,
for me.
and 3 times for Miss Pippi.
Mm-hmm.
And so I needed to do something other than music. You know, I couldn't go out on the road raising children, so I had to do something other than music in a certain town so that they could go to school and have friends and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up doing, when I first got out of high school, when I finished, a buddy of mine who was a garage band drummer, a very good drummer back then, and we were doing stuff like Chicago Transit Authority back then. And he says, Dan, he says, I know you want to make music your career, your profession. And here I am, 17, 18 years old. He says, and rightfully so, but you should have something other than music to fall back on. I said, what? He says, yeah, so that, you know, if you go to New York or LA or wherever, you would be able to have a profession that you could pay your rent while you're making connections in the community that you are. I said, you know, that makes sense. I said, well, what are you thinking about? He says, well, I'm going to barber school. And I says, I'm not going to be a barber. Are you nuts? He said, well, think about it, Dan. You would have reciprocity. If you got your license, you'd have reciprocity throughout the states. I didn't even know what reciprocity meant, let alone be able to spell it.
Right,
You know?
right.
And I said, really? And so I went back to my mother. My father was killed when I was 9. And so she raised, you know, all these kids, although there was 29 years difference between my oldest brother and me. So they were old enough to be my parents. They have children older than me. So anyway, I asked her, I said, well, what do you think? She said, well, you're not doing anything now. This was before I went out on the road. And so I went to school for 6 months, learned how to cut hair dangerously, but learned how to cut hair at this barber school. I mean, talk about old time barber school.
Yeah.
And I got the offer to go out on the road, and I left. So then from then on, I was having girlfriends. I was cutting their hair and family members and things like this, but I never finished it. And then I ended up going up to Minneapolis the first time because I was really into religion at the time. I went from, you were talking about how was it growing up in nightclubs at 13.
Yeah.
With your peers, and this is back in the 60s, when everybody was the Rat Pack and everybody was real cool, and it was just right when Brazilian music and Latin American music was coming into the United States, and they were actually taking our music, our music, the Beatles and Burt Bacharach, and they were putting a Latin music, Portuguese rhythms behind it. It was great. But those were my peers. So I had the peers of all the alcoholics that were happening. I had the school peers that were brainiacs and sports people. And that was also when the drug culture was coming in. And because I was playing music, there were people coming, hey, try this, try this. And so there were all this convoluted realities of life, and I was partaking of all of them. And because I was the youngest of 10, I knew how to juggle personalities and fit in. So I did it all. And consequently, because of that, I ended up in a drug, not rehab, but I ended up in a life of drugs and craziness. And so I was way over here with the pendulum, and I swung way over here, and I thought, well, in order to be anti that, I need to go over here and clean myself up so squeaky. So I got into religion. I thought that would be the opposite. And so I was just as dogmatic about that as I was dogmatic about that. Right now, I'm open to everything and attached to nothing. So, but it's all part of the process. If you were to see this beautiful, well-adjusted individual before you right now, back in the day, not so much.
Boy, I'm glad I missed that part.
I'm glad you missed it.
Oh.
You wouldn't.
So how about you, Pippi? How was your path pretty much music?
My path was pretty much music. My first husband and I, he was a piano player, which he was responsible, and 2 children. And we made beautiful music. We wrote a lot of music, and we played and performed and moved out to California and wrote with A&M Records. We did a lot of stuff, and came back here, but he was on drugs. So I was married to him during that time that I didn't know him. And he and Robert is the reason why I swore off any musicians.
Especially piano players.
Especially piano players. No, but any musicians, because of 20 years of up and down and rehab and all that stuff, and not being, and to the point where we had a recording contract with
A&E? A&E?
No, it was not A&E. This one contract we have, Houston Connections, and we had this contract with them, and everything was going great, but he was so strung out then, I had to get out of that contract. When I had my father-in-law to help me, and my father-in-law was vice president of Johnson Publishing Company, and so he had a lot of power and was able to get us out of that contract. But it was either we were going to go forward with the contract and wind up being totally penalized, or just don't do it at all. And so that. And then now we have a child, And so then, and I'm not doing music now. So I wind up uh, being a computer programmer. I went to school to be a computer programmer. Of course, I mean, that makes perfect sense. And it was the mainframes. And so I was like, and I went through a whole world of different, different languages that we were working from. I actually came in on the end where the mainframes were moving into MIDIs, and they were using, COBOL and all these other things, and then they were just making this huge shift to this thing called personal computers.
Yeah.
And they were going to be for these executives.
It'll never last.
And it would never last.
Right.
And I believed in it. And I started working for Bell Atlantic, teaching computer language to executives because they were the only ones that are going to be able to have that.
Right.
Nobody else would have it. And my people that I worked with, they really wanted me out of the programming world because I was a chatty Cathy. I would come in, I wanted to connect with everybody, and they were just wanting to focus on computers, right? And I'm just like, and they were saying, no, yeah, you need to go and do that because you really need people. But I was a wonderful programmer, but they were just like, please get out of here. So
I realize now that after I said what I did when are you done?
No, not really.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So anyway, so then I worked.
So then I was
So I, as working through that, I got introduced to corporate, and then I started working as a technical writer for a large corporation, a national education training corporation, and then from there, and I just shut down my music.
So you weren't doing any.
Yeah, I just could not. I couldn't do the music anymore because the only thing that was important to me was taking care of my kids.
Sure.
And then my husband and we got back together within that 20 years, had another baby 10 years apart. And so then it was like all gun ho, take care of the babies, period,
Thanks for the segue. So that's why when I went to Minnesota, I was in the church because I thought the music business was connected with the crazy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Which it can be, but it's not always. And in fact, it's really changed quite a bit in the last 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
But while I was in religion, there were two guys that were cutting hair and their families, and they found out that I had a background in hair, and I went to school again up in Minneapolis, and I ended up working in hair up in Minneapolis while I was doing ministry work during the day, or actually during the evening. And
is that me?
that's your baby. And so I ended up doing that, and then I came back down here and raised my children while having my own salon, and then I went back up to Minnesota. Go ahead, babe.
Yeah. Well,
I just wanted to finish my...
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, babe.
Yeah.
So can I ask really quickly, Daniel, were you still playing music during that hair?
No.
During that period, or had you also kind of just stopped?
In the church, I was doing that, and I was writing gospel kind of music at that time too. And the person that I was that was the head of the fellowship was a woman, and she had a background of opera, but she loved music, and we co-wrote a lot of gospel music back then, and we utilized it in the church, and we played around the Minneapolis, St. Paul area.
Yeah.
So Pippi, how did you get back to music then?
Well, it was a series of awakenings. I had really gone totally into nothing for music. I didn't even play music in my house because it was associated with love, my relationship with my husband. It was always music, you know, because he played the piano and the keyboards, and I was on a recovery of understanding who I was. Music hadn't, I lost my husband to drugs, and there was nothing about music that I wanted to deal with.
Probably
You know?
brought up all kinds of emotions that you
Yeah.
didn't want to deal with.
Yeah, I didn't want to deal with any of it because the nightclubs, all of that meant a lifestyle that would not sustain me with my children and would not give them the security they needed. And it was also my upbringing that I was in the devil's world.
That's what I was wondering earlier
saying,
when you were talking about Pentecostal church.
Yeah.
When did they start talking to you again? Because I remember being in the Pentecostal religion, and they thought that an F major seventh chord was of the devil.
Yeah.
So you were steeped in it, not only in the religion of it or the fellowship, the people, but your family was.
Yeah.
Mine wasn't, so I wasn't ostracized. Yeah, I was kind of ostracized for being one of them holy rollers, but I remember there were certain things that you didn't do in that legalistic.
Right. And that the thing was that my grandmother, when I was in, the way I got my name Pippi, was my grandmother over my crib. I was squeaking, and my grandmother said to my mother, this is a story that is carried through my life. If you don't get this little pipsqueak to sing for the church, she's going to sing for the world. So you better get this little pipsqueak into the church. And my mother was she was kind of a rebel. My mom and dad both went to the University of Chicago.
Your mother was brought up Jewish, right?
No, she wasn't brought up Jewish. She was brought up Christian, but she was a Bernstein. So that was, my grandfather was part Jewish, Black, or Brazilian. We're not sure about that. And then my mom, my grandmother was Cherokee Indian and African American, and so
we need to know all this in case we have children, so that we know that.
Yeah, right. We got our children, and anyway, so the whole vibration of this was that I was doomed. Because I chose the world versus the church, and so to go into that direction was really basically, everything that I had been experiencing was the truth of what I had heard all my life. Was that, these people were going to hell in a handbasket. The lifestyle is horrible. You can't make nothing of yourself with it. It's a hard road to swallow, yada, 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 yada. And forget all the love to sing. And I was always torn between, but I'm singing good stuff. I'm making people feel good. I feel that this is a ministry of mine, of what I was doing. So it was real easy for me to cut it off, and to cut it completely off and not even play music in my house. And I came from a household that when my grandmother came down into the house, you cut the worldly music off. You don't play the worldly music. So it was easy for me to cut that off. And then going into corporate and finding out it was life is always great for you because it always opens up another understanding of your power, and what kind of power you're giving away, So here I was thinking that it wasn't any good when I had all this corporate background, and I decided this music was bursting in me, and I had to get back to this music. But this time, I'm going to do it smart. Number one, I'm not going to be singing in nightclubs all night. I'm not going to be doing it 6 days a week. I'm going in with a contract. I wrote myself a contract up. I went around to some nightclubs in Chicago, and I told them, this is what I want. 3 days a week, I want to make. I needed to make the same amount of money I was making corporate. And I was have to pay my musician. So I made the contract up. I said how much I wanted to make. I was only going to work 3 days a week. I had to be done by 1 o'clock because I had to get up in the morning to take care of my kids, right? Mm-hmm. I went, and there was a new nightclub that opened up. And well, first it was another nightclub, and then and I got the job. They gave me they signed the contract. And then the next thing I know, I was doing another contract in another place. And I did that. So 3 days a week, I was making as much as I was making as a corporate manager. And doing very well for myself. And it was really good, and found out that people weren't signing contracts. Singers weren't setting themselves up like that. They were just gigging.
Right.
And so anyway, it worked out well for me, and I got back into the music, and I was a jukebox. I did songs that people wanted, and it was in a piano bar. And I did these songs, and of course I did them my way. And it worked out well. So that's how I got back into it, and I was able to take care of my kids.
And when you stopped singing, did you also stop writing? Like, did you have a period where you didn't write any music?
Well, when I stopped singing, I did like what Daniel did. When I stopped singing, then I went through this period where it was like all religion, but I couldn't go back to Pentecostal. So I went to like this like really avant-garde church that was being held at the Park West, which is a big venue in Chicago on the north side. And all great performers would come in. It was nice and huge. And we would go in there on Sunday, and we'd pray over we'd walk around early in the morning. I was part of that. Walk around early in the morning and pray over every single chair and just get the room ready for our service. And Dave Clark, who is a friend of mine, he came to me and he asked me to sing in his church. And he was holding church services there. And because it wasn't traditional, I decided I wanted to go, and be a part of it. And then one morning, I had gotten all these words, these lyrics, and I called Dave up, and I told Dave, I said, you know what? I got a leading from God that you're supposed to write this music. And he said, I don't write music, Pippi. And I said, well, then you need to talk to God, because I got these lyrics, so here, work it out. So he wrote the music, and then we became a writing pair, and we wrote lots of praise and worship music. And so then that's how I kind of got back, and then went into the nightclub scene.
Yeah. So what's fascinating is, when did the two of you meet?
Can
I talk?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I don't know why he always tries to make it like he is like under siege.
It's the truth. That's why.
I am so not.
We don't believe him for a minute.
Yeah, don't even believe it. Yeah, right.
So Mary's on this call for the reason that if it weren't for Mary Harris, who's a phenomenal singer, all of you who don't,
songwriter,
performer in the Twin City area. Mary is from the same area that I'm from, the Midwest. And her brother is a piano player, Coleman. and Coleman had a young black man playing congas. I don't know if James was playing congas back then or if he was playing a trap set. But so I did an album. James is now over in Germany, and he's a phenomenal musician. And he came back to the area, and we did a Afro-Cuban live album CD, and
amazing.
It was a blast, and it is a great album.
Amazing album.
Yeah. It really made me have to dig in regards to Afro-Cuban piano is not one of the easiest things to play, and but I'm glad I did it because now it's in my wheelhouse. So he told me he knew that I was going up to Minneapolis to work in treatment centers, spiritual treatment centers, and so he says, well, if you're going to Minneapolis, you need to get a hold of Mary. That's Coleman's sister, and she's up there, and so that she can introduce you to the musicians in the Twin City area. And so when I got up there, after I got settled in my new digs and my career at the time, I called Mary, and I had a couple conversations with Mary on the phone is all. And I think the second one, Mary says, I don't think I'm the person that you need to talk to. And the one thank God. And the one I feel that you need to talk to is Pippi Ardennia. Do you know who she is? I said, no. Well, she's performing tonight at the Landmark downtown St. Paul. And she has a foundation that she works with kids. I said, well, yeah, I've been doing that for the last 14 years myself. So I went down there and I met her posse of people that greeted the person at the door and went in and sat down and watched the concert. She blew me away with all the young musicians and the older musicians that were mentoring the other musicians, the younger ones that she had in her foundation. And afterwards, I remember going out into the foyer, and here comes Pippi with her designer for her clothes, walking. And Pippi's got this look like she's in a coma with a smile on her face to greet her public, right? But she just had given everything in the concert, and I'm trying to strike up a conversation with her because I want to make some connections so that I can have some musicians and expression of music for myself. And she was not really connecting with me. And I looked at her designer. I thought, well, maybe I can talk to her designer. And so I'm talking to her designer. You make all of Pippi's clothes? Oh, yeah.
Judy Cooper Lyle.
Judy Cooper Lyle. And I says, oh, they're beautiful. I says, do you make men's clothing? Because I've always wanted to have, usually you have to wear a jacket or something like that. I wanted something that I could wear that wasn't really out there, but that would separate me from the audience while I'm performing, especially if you're doing outdoor concerts or whatever. And she said, well, like what? And something that's, like not a tuck-in type thing, but just something that maybe thigh length and that would be able, I could move while playing piano. And I said, you remember the dashikis in the 70s?
And
that's all she heard.
That's all I heard. This white guy asking Judy to make him dashiki.
Right?
Like, why?
Right?
Oh, I don't know where he is, but I don't want to know where. But anyway, so that was the end of that. I just kind of shut down on him because I was like,
so afterwards, we went over across the street to this nice restaurant, and everybody had ordered hors d'oeuvres and passing it around, and we were talking. And so I got to meet Billy Peterson, who was the bass player. It was the first time I met him, and then we played together quite often. And Mary and Judy and Dee and
everybody was
a lot of people there.
Right.
But now I wasn't there. Let Mary hear it.
You weren't there No, that's right. You weren't there that night. You just don't go there.
Yeah. I said you should go. You should go here. I think I was ready to take a nap. I said, you should go hear my girl Pippi today.
Oh,
That Mary.
there we go.
That Mary, she does that kind of stuff.
We're cutting
Mary,
into my nap time.
Mary will refer
Yep.
so quickly. She's so giving and so amazingly just connected.
And if it weren't for Mary, I wouldn't have met Pippi. So,
Yeah, that was how we met.
and we didn't really have any more communication while I was up in Minneapolis
Okay.
at that time. And then I moved back down to Galesburg, and Pippi was doing morning vlogs out of her
On Facebook, yeah.
home. And they would be maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and she would have a concept that she was presenting. And at the end of the presentation, she would always sing something a cappella that would pertain to what she was talking about, usually. And so I'm sitting in Galesburg, and I had Facebook friend her. That was the only connectivity that I had made, other than that of having hors d'oeuvres across the table with her. And so she's saying things, and I had already written enough data for 3 books up there while I was working in the treatment centers as a spiritual advisor, is what my title was. But basically, I was just giving options to people that felt that they had already used all the options that were, and that's not true, is it? So it's inexhaustible, the options that are available to us. So I was communicating with Pippi about what she said, and I would write all these things, and I would even elaborate more so.
Yeah, it was great.
Go ahead.
He was amazing. Like, I was writing these, like I would get these inspirations in the morning. And I would hear stuff, and I would say, so I would ask myself the question, and then I would present it to everyone else. So, I mean, is it possible to recreate, to reinvent yourself? And I would hear that in the morning, and then I would ponder the thought and everything, and then I would do the song, and here, I'm saying these things that are in the depths of my soul, my spirit, and my heart. And people were saying things like, your lipstick is great.
Where did you get that scarf?
I love that, your hair, Pippi.
Oh my God.
And I would be like, oh, thank you. But did you hear what I said? I mean, I was like, or I love that voice. I love your voice, stuff like that. But then on the backside, people would, privately message me, and they would be like, oh my gosh, that really hit home. And it still wasn't what I was talking about, but they got something out of it. But Daniel would actually write these long stories, but he knew exactly what I was saying, and he got it. And so then we started having these amazing conversations.
And one thing led to another. We started communicating on Skype, and I told her one time that I says, those, when you're singing, because the Facebook Live things that you do, they stay on the page for a while. So I could go back to them, and I could sit down on my grand piano and play along with her, right? Wow. And so I told her one day, I says, Pippi, I says, I don't think you understand this, but while you're singing, I'm playing with you. And she
you
again
didn't say singing.
While you're singing your songs
you said
on Facebook, I said, I'm playing with you.
No, you didn't, baby. What you said.
Okay.
What you said to me.
We'll be right back after this.
What you said to me, which made me freak out about
I think either way you'd freak out.
No. What you said was that you said, there's times where I'm on your Facebook page and I play with you.
Okay.
And I'm thinking to myself, he's a weirdo.
Yeah. And you were right.
No. Yeah, and I was like,
I was playing piano.
Because at that
time,
at the time, I didn't know he was a piano player. We had been talking for like 3 months. And I had no idea he was a piano player. So when he said that to me, I thought he was weird. I was like, because I was telling people, I think I have a love interest. And they were saying, remember when I started talking about this, and
Yep.
they would say, "Well, where did you meet him?" Because I didn't even remember I met him back then, and so then um, I said on Facebook, and they were like, "Oh my God, Pippi, what's going on with you? What you mean you met this guy on Facebook?" So and because at the time, I don't even think you, Mary, knew that
I had met Mary one time at the Dakota. She was performing, and right before she was going up, she was heading towards either the privy or the stage. She was in a hurry, and I had never met her, but I knew who she was, and only talked to her on the phone. And I met her as she was hustling, and I said, "Hey, Mary, it's Daniel Leahy." "Oh yeah, goodbye." And,
I went, oh, that's nice.
"Oh, that's nice. Yeah, who are you?"
yeah. So anyway, the thing was is that we finally got together, and this is another sweet part of this story is that I was doing I was hiring for this for a seasonal a jazz festival, and a jazz series, and it coincide with the jazz festival. And so I was booking all these people and hooking it up, and so I booked his band to come up, and we were playing because it was going to be for the jazz festival, and he was also going to be playing another night because it was a weekly thing. And he came, so this is the first time we're seeing each other. And it just so happens that Mary is in my house.
You were rehearsing for that festival.
We were rehearsing
and I have two daughters that are living in the Twin City area, and I was with them, and Pippi says, "I'm doing a vocal rehearsal."
Yeah.
So that's where I actually got to sit down with Mary a little bit to meet her and let her know that she stiffed me at the Dakota. And so I went over to Pippi's house to assist, to play piano while they're learning their vocal harmonies.
Yeah, and so and it was really great because Mary was doing that for them, but it was great because she was also helping them with the vocal harmony. So so it was great that Daniel
Mary plays piano too.
was doing what he was doing. But the thing was, I was so nervous because I already knew I'd fallen in love with him. And I was trying to prepare myself that if it wasn't real, because I didn't know, because we hadn't met face to face really consciously, and then I still wanted to be his friend. I wanted to be his friend because I really liked him. I liked the way he thought and everything. And so then he comes in my house, and I'm here, and my heart and everything just starts going. I walk around the corner, go in the hallway. There he's standing, and then I knew it. I knew he was it. I knew this was the one for me, and that was the vibration. The whole evening, the way it went, the way he was, his way of being was just so divine, and everybody got a chance to meet him, and that particular night, and everybody was connecting with it, and so that was when I knew that we were in a relationship. I don't think he knew yet, or if he did, he was really playing like he was not.
No, both of us had been in relationships before, and that ship had passed. Is what we thought, and we were good with it. Both of us were good with that. And when Pippi found out that I cook, then I kind of sealed.
It did not.
Because I'm cooking, she's still washing dishes.
Daniel, when did you know? Like, when did you feel like, oh yeah, okay, this is more than a friendship?
Question I never asked.
That is a good question, and I don't know exactly when that happened.
I bet I could tell y'all.
Go ahead, Vic.
At the House of Pain, y'all had a different. We played at her friend Kelly created a place, a performance space, and we performed there one night. And I think that's one of the first times y'all looked at each other's eyes the way y'all. That's the first time I saw y'all look at each other's eyes the way you did. And it's kind of your body's kind of. I could tell y'all it was happening.
I think we got a little close right before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one of the times I first saw House of Pain, and then when we performed at TPT, that was awesome. Love. It just was. It was just flourishing. It was developing and flourishing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was developing and flourishing, and
we did a thing, just a duel, just the two of us in the at TPT also, and that was amazing as well. It was they have that Petrov piano, grand piano.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Concert grand piano, and you could hear a pin drop. And were you at that concert, Mary?
I don't think she was at the concert.
The sound was just tweaked right perfect. I mean, it was just a great concert, and I
believe it.
Energy there too.
But I want to get back to when did you know that you were in love with me?
We'll be right back after. I don't really recall a certain time because there was a lot of travel. I was going to ask you when did that friendship thing? No, I'm kidding.
You know what? I'm going to tell you one thing. If you don't get an understanding of when was that, I remember.
I see what you guys doing.
I'm sorry. I said, Lori. Who knew, Lori? Who knew we did?
Thanks a lot. It was fun while it lasted. I'm out of here. Well, there was so much travel, and that was going on with me. I mean, it's 420 miles from where I am now to Minneapolis, so that's 840 miles. And I was going up there for Pippi. I was going up there for my kids and for work. And it was during one of those times. I believe there was a time where I left. And this could be the very thing. When Pippi, I already had, respect and admiration for Pippi. But, as far as, the heart space love, I want you to be my partner for life type thing. I remember I left Minneapolis to go back home because, on a scheduled trip. And I had been with Pippi, and she was going through some shift changes in her life with her occupation, with the people around her. Just things were, how they do in all of our lives. And, those of us who are flexible and understand that when we feel that the doors are closing, it doesn't mean that the life is against us. It means that life is ushering us into another open door. And so Pippi was going through that experience, and I said, why don't you come? I was about, left the Twin City area.
You said it before I went down to work.
Yeah, but I was already on the road. I was probably close to Faribault, leaving the Twin Cities and on 35W. And I said, why don't you just come and live with me? And I don't know, you said, what? I said, why don't you just come and live with me? Are you serious? I said, yeah. What do you got to lose?
Yeah, that was very romantic. And I said,
you know what?
And I said, this is what I said. He actually said this before he left. And it stopped me in my tracks because I was getting ready to go to work, and I worked in the building that I lived in.
Yep.
And then I called him when he was on the road, and I said,
oh, that's right.
Are you sure?
Are you serious?
Are you serious?
Yeah. And I said, what do you got to lose?
And then he said, what do you have to lose? And then I thought to myself, I don't know. that's kind of weird. And so,
And her brother was telling us, you're going to go live with this guy in Illinois?
yeah, my brother said, you know,
Are you sure? Or do you know?
you know, he's a white man. You know how this is. You know how they can be. I was like, what do you mean how they can be? You know, so he said, yeah, next thing you know, so I don't know, this is not working out for me. It's not, I don't think this is going to work. And I said,
Yeah, that was nice. You have to leave now.
and then I said, yeah, and I said to myself, I said, I'm a grown woman. I mean,
I'm not sure anything.
I said, there's one thing for sure. In my 63 years of living on this earth, I don't know how anything is going to work out. So that's for sure. So however this works, you know, it'll work that way because I know where home is. And so I was good with that. So, and the thing I was more concerned about is all the stuff I had. You know, I had so much stuff I was bringing into his place. I kept on saying to him, "Are you sure that you want to bring all my stuff?" And he was like, "Yeah." So anyway, we did that, and we've been together ever since. And it's really
We can't get rid of her stuff. We don't know where to.
So, yeah, right. That thing. So, but I already told them when I came here that if this doesn't work out, I'm leaving this stuff because I'm not carrying it with me anymore. So I made that perfectly clear. So he was going to have a whole lot of stuff.
So when did you really start performing together? Like, was that as soon as you moved in? That was sort of, now we're going to do this together, or how did that come about?
We started writing during, because I have a electric keyboard that I was using because it was an outside concert. And this keyboard has the ability to sequence, is what you call it. So you can put a drum part in, bass parts, horns, and everything. And it's a nice one, so the quality's there. And I was where Pippi stayed. The place had a room that anybody needed a room for any of the festivals, stay there. And I was in there, and I brought the keyboard in, and I was showing her some stuff that I had written musically. And she goes, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
what is that?" I said, "It's just something."
Yeah, he was just like poo-pooing his stuff, and it's like great music. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm hearing these words. I'm hearing this concept. And so then I started playing with it, and then we started writing together, and it was amazing. And I couldn't believe, I mean, he'd written things before, but it wasn't like he was like writing. He would write things and they would just disappear because he didn't think they were anything. And I was
It's
like,
just what I do.
kidding?
It's like riding a bike.
This is a masterpiece, man. You know, so that's how we started writing together. Then that happened immediately upon us being face to face in Minnesota.
And now I think we have at least about 150 tunes. I know.
And does one of you write the music? Like Daniel, do you write the music, and Pippi, you do more of the lyrics, or it really is just you both jump in and?
Yeah, this we're going to be doing our home concert this Thursday.
Yeah.
And instead of doing the traditional, "Hi, we're here to entertain you," and we're playing all of our music, I thought that it would be really good, really informative to have a segment in there to show how that process happens. So we're going to
love that.
Yeah, we're going to do that. So normally I will go over to the piano. Normally, there's times where Pippi has an idea, and there was something that we did that was just different the other day. I says, "Pippi, give me a rhythm that you feel." Right, and she did it, and then I wrote, put chords and music to that rhythm.
Wow.
Because oftentimes, Mary, as you know, we write from where we're comfortable at, from our bubble. And if I'm really into a swing mood, everything's going to spang, spang, galang, So, or Latin or whatever. So I asked Pippi, I said, what are you feeling? So she felt this funk thing, and I wrote it because I played all of it, just throughout the years in all the different groups. So that's a possibility of how things happen. There's some things that Pippi had written musically with, I think, Dave or Dave Clark.
Yeah, I mean, I've written stuff on my own. I've written stuff with Dave.
But she hadn't
Joe.
But she hadn't finished. I'm talking about our collaboration. So that she hadn't finished, or she gets to a certain point, but I'm hearing something, but I don't know how to put it down.
Mm-hmm.
One of our songs,
I'm grateful.
No,
So
it's not ungrateful.
okay, that's what you're singing then is Love for Free.
Yeah, Love for Free, which is a counterfact to, which is take a song that's already famous,
Mm-hmm.
structure, and you write a different melody to it. That's what Charlie Parker did all the time. So there was a song called Love for Sale.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Pippi, this is a great song. This is a great arrangement. Why don't you want to do it? Because I don't want to sing and it's already being up a attractive woman in front of a bunch of people.
I had experienced it too many times. That's why I stopped singing that song.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
I would be in nightclubs, not with him, but when I was in nightclubs.
So
before,
Love for Sale, it's
and
about
Love for Sale, and then I had to
a night.
deal with these guys,
Walker,
like,
sure,
yeah, are you? And then be like, no, I'm not singing that song ever again.
So don't even try it. Don't even approach me.
Don't even ask me to do it. I don't want to talk about it.
So we wrote I wrote a different melody to it, and then
Mm-hmm.
we both get downloads and songs. We play off of each other.
Mm-hmm.
She'll say something, and it's like, yeah, but that doesn't work with the rhythm of what we just wrote, and then we'd argue. No, then
Yeah, because he's a stickler for that.
Yeah.
I'm about free flowing. He's about everything's got to fit, and it works out really well.
So I have an unusual request because we've been talking now for an hour and 10 minutes. That's a long time.
You want us to stop?
And no, what I'd like is to ask if you come back for a second.
Oh.
For a second podcast, because
I believe that
this is already so long that I'm probably going to break it. I may break it up into two sections. I need to go through it and listen to it because people's attention is not always as, it's not necessarily an hour and a half long. But I have so many more questions for the two of you. And I really want Mary, what I kept wanting to say was, Mary, think about what you want to ask Pippi and Daniel that you don't know. And so what I'd like to do, if you're all three willing, is to have you back again and go from here, because I'd like to hear more about your collaboration. I'd like to hear more about what you would say to younger musicians. I'd like to hear more about what your dreams are, what your passions are, what you're doing now. And then I'd like you both to tell me, of the people you've played with besides each other and Mary, who else has been just like, oh my gosh, I got to play with this person. I just want to know more about you. And I think that people will want to hear that. And I don't want to feel like we're rushed to cram it in so that we can. So if you're willing, I would love to do this again next week.
That sounds great to me. What do you think, honey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That sounds amazing.
I think that's what we're going to do. This is the first segment of our interview with Pippi and Daniel. Amazing.
Right.
Oh my God.
Part two will be coming up, where we'll learn more about your careers, and hopefully we'll also get you to sing something for us at the end of part two. Mary, I want you to be thinking about, from everything you've now learned, because I'm sure you've learned some new things about Pippi and Daniel, but from everything you've heard, be thinking about, what do you want to know more about? And
I've already got questions. Yeah, I'll be thinking about it.
I thought you did. And so let's, does this same time next week work for everyone?
Yeah.
I think so. I have to look.
Okay. Well, I will send you all an email. But in the meantime, anyone who's listening, thank you so much for being here. This is our podcast, Inclusivi-TALKS. I am so honored to be able to talk to musicians and creative people and hear about their process and their lives. And I just want to say, Pippi and Daniel, what a pleasure. And how fascinating that your lives really have paralleled up to the point that you met.
Isn't it?
It's kind of amazing, actually, that your lives were so just sort of a mirror of each other, and then you met.
Right.
And how I think that's wonderful, and what beautiful music for all of us, and how fortunate we are to have you working together and collaborating. So I can't wait to hear more. I can't wait to hear some music, and I will look forward to talking to both of you again. And everybody who's listening, tune in again for the next version and or the next episode, because frankly, they just have too much to tell us in 1 hour. It's impossible that we could have done this in an hour. You're both so charming. So thank you so
If she's a mouse.